What's up and welcome back to Bardown Talking Hockey, episode number 198, presented by the Barroom Network. It is the home of everything relating to the Stanley Cup playoffs. My name is Vinny Parisi, and I don't even know what I am these days. And this right here, this is Frankie Mueller, and he is the king of all beans. Frank, what are you doing?
Doing good, VP. We got a new pope.
We got a new pope, Frank, from Chicago, Illinois, Pope Robert Prevost. He is 69 years old. Nice. He was born in the great land of Chicago, Illinois. He is a Bears fan. Mr. Pope. Frank, there was white smoke this morning. I read that it was the longest duration between the white smoke and the Pope coming out the window in Pope Catholic history.
Yeah, normally it's within like the first hour. I think it bled over a little bit over an hour this time. It's very exciting. Bears fan, Cubs fan, maybe a Blackhawks fan. Who knows? It's history making. And as for somebody who's seen the movie Conclave, then to see a real life conclave unfold, it was a pretty cool moment.
100%. Maybe our Chicago sports misery can get out of hell now that the Pope is from Chicago.
Maybe this is all we need.
Connor Bedard can have 100 points. Blackhawks could get kind of back into contention. Caleb Williams can be the first 4,000-yard passer in Chicago Bears history. The two baseball teams can get their shit together. One is already on track to get their shit together. The other has got a long way to go. I don't even know if the Pope could save that team. The Bulls will trade for Giannis. What?
When Bedard has 70 goals next year, we know why.
Yes.
We know why.
Absolutely. Did you say Bedard 70?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be crazy.
Then we know why.
Yeah.
The power of Pope Leo is on our side.
Man, Matthews came so close. I believe that 70s in one of these guys, and he had 16. He basically scored 70. I mean, right? Do we get to say that?
I mean, he didn't, but basically, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, he did. He had one in the playoffs.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that don't count. But
no, it don't count. Frank, we are going to touch on some puck here in period number 1. Frank, over the week on Monday, it was announced the draft lottery had the results come out, and they did this whole big production on ESPN with Commissioner Bettman and John Buccigross and a bunch of other lawyers that were in the room with their back facing the lottery machine. It was an interesting television show. Ultimately, the New York Islanders won the first overall pick, moving up with a 3.5% chance from the 10th spot all the way up to 1. And then the Utah Hockey Club, they were called the Utah Hockey Club at the day of the drawing. They moved up from 14 to 4. You could only move up 10 spots in the lottery. Two teams that were in the playoff race till the end won lottery spots this year. That happens every now and again. A lot of the times it is the chalk, the teams that finish near the bottom of the league. But this year, it was one of those weird years where two teams flew up the rankings. It's always possible. Kind of makes you wonder, like, tanking. It's not a foolproof way of rebuilding. There is a little bit of luck involved with winning lotteries and also just being smart with your draft picks in general. But Frank, what are your thoughts on the Islanders and the now Utah Mammoth being the winners of the draft lottery?
It was definitely a stunner for sure. I mean, 3.5% chance, meaning you have 35 lottery combinations out of the 1,001 possible. I mean, it was just luck was on their side for the New York Islanders. This signifies that, they lost or they got rid of Lou Lamoriello. He stepped down. They're going to have a new GM. They kind of looked towards a new era in Long Island, and this basically puts the nail in the coffin and signifies that. And they have a couple different options they could go about here. Do they go with the center? Do they choose James Higgins, a native of New York? Do they go with the defenseman? Do they go with Schaefer? I mean, the Islanders are in a different predicament because they're not one of those bottom teams. They're not one of those teams who were bottom of the barrel. Like you said, they were fighting for a playoff spot down the stretch. So they're not as bad as some of the other teams are, where things might have looked more straightforward for them. But I think this is a pivotal turning point in the new era of Long Island for the New York Islanders. And as far as the Utah Mammoth, it's another massive shocker. They moved up the maximum 10 spots to the 4th overall pick in this year's draft. They already have a very talented squad on their team, and this is just going to help them solidify their core a little bit tighter. And they're going to get a good player in this year's draft, even at 4.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to me, for the Islanders, it's got to be Schaefer. I just don't see a world where they. I mean, I could be so wrong because if there's a boneheaded franchise to like take the guy that's local to them, especially since the last time they had the number 1 pick, he left to go home. Well, this guy wouldn't do it if they selected Hagens because he would be home right off the bat.
Yep.
I think Hagens is a very good player. I find it odd the way he's fallen a little bit. The way, you ask us in September who's going to be the number 1 pick in the 2025 NHL draft. I would have said Hagens with no hesitation whatsoever. And then he went to Boston College and he stepped in Will Smith's spot, both on the power play and on even strength, and was very good. Perreault and Leonard both stayed in college for 1 more year. Will Smith moved on to the San Jose Sharks. Hagens took Smith's spot. He was great with them. He fit right in. In the World Juniors, I thought he made an impact. There were multiple times where I was like impressed by the way Hagens played.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's more of he wasn't like Macklin Celebrini winning the Hobie Baker type of freshman. And Misa and Schaefer have had incredible rises up the draft ranking, which is interesting for Schaefer because he hardly played this year. He's been injured. So, and I've also heard rumors that this kid, McQueen, I'm drawing a blank on his first name. Let me get a first name really quick. I want to give the kid his due respect. Roger McQueen. Apparently he would be like in the mix for the number 1 overall pick if he didn't have beef jerky for a back. He's got back issues, like serious back issues, but his skill is like through the roof. So there are teams, he's going to go in the top 10, and the team that selects him is either going to have long-term disappointment because he was never healthy enough to play, or he's going to like get healthy and be healthy, and a team is going to have made the whole draft look bad. I definitely don't think he's going to be the number 1 pick. Definitely probably not even in the top 5. But man, these teams in the area there, they all kind of have some decisions to make. I think predicting the top 7 is harder this year than any year ever. And the Islanders winning the lottery and the Utah Mammoth moving up makes it even more difficult to predict, in my opinion.
And really that makes it more hard. It makes it harder to predict for everybody around them too, because they don't know who's going to be on the table, who's going to be left. It's just very tough. And this is actually not the first time the Islanders have selected first. Back in 2009, they took John Tavares first overall. Will they get a type of player like him that's made such an impact in Long Island? We'll see. I agree. I think they might lean towards defensemen here based on the current squad they have. But it's not concrete, and that ultimately changes as what's going to happen for San Jose, the Blackhawks, Utah, that are in 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So it'll be really interesting to see the route that they take.
There's only one team, I believe, that could have realistically won the lottery and traded out of the pick or just taken someone else that's not Schaefer, and that's the Blackhawks. Because, I mean, Korchinski, Levshinov, Rinzel,
went with the defense,
Del Mastro, Allen. But if he's the certified best player, and like that's what every scout is saying, and every scout says Kyle Schaefer's, then you got to trade down. You can't not take shit. You can't take somebody else over Schaefer first overall if you're anybody, in my opinion. You have to trade down to 3. Like if the Hawks win the lottery and the Predators stay at 3, you gotta figure something out there. I know you're probably not trading in the division. Someone's coming up to 1, and you could get Hagens or Misa or Martone, one of these guys at 4th, 5th overall. Frondell, everybody likes. I heard our friend of the program, Charlie Romeliotis, talking about Caleb Denoyers today on NBC Sports Chicago. I actually watched the lottery with Romeliotis. It was a very interesting experience doing that whole thing on Monday. But it seemed like, so I was curious what the vibes were going to be surrounding the Blackhawks if they lowered in the lottery, and they did lower, and nobody was down on it. Everyone was like still in a good mood. Like it almost feels like there's a sense of happiness that they didn't win it just in case they're not a playoff team next year. And you could say not even a bubble team. The Islanders were a bubble team. The Mammoth were a bubble. Like, if you're not a playoff team next year, you are not ineligible to get Gavin McKenna. And I think that was a little bit of worrisome on San Jose and Chicago. I really, really do. It seemed like there was a sense of, like, we're still getting a real good player third overall. We're getting one of the, I think there's a clear top 5, probably even a top 6 with Denoyer, but I don't know. I really like this draft class so far. I'm digging it. I think it's going to be fun to study for the next.
It's very balanced.
It is. There's not too many. I'm thinking there's probably like one other D besides Schaefer that's going to go. This Jackson Smith. He plays for Tri-City in the WHL. He's a lefty. There's Radim Murka. I guess you would probably pronounce it that way. And then not more defensemen to like the lower teens. So it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of teams with multiple picks in the first round.
Yep.
The Blackhawks have 2 and 29 if the season were to end today. Obviously, it'll all depend on where the Toronto Maple Leafs land. But the Flyers have 2 first-round picks. A lot of these teams have 3 second-round picks to go with their first 2 first-round picks. Frank, I wonder if the Blackhawks trade up. I said they probably wouldn't trade up to 1 because I don't think anybody is going to outbid for Schaefer. But what if they made a trade with San Jose to get up to 2 and take Misa? Like, Misa's so sick, and I think he would be awesome to add to the forward group because the Hawks are set on defense. I'm a little more hesitant on trading Korchinski than I was before the Rockford playoffs started. I've seen the impact he can make. We'll see if it ever like sticks at the NHL level, but you have an offensive defenseman that could, create chances offensively. I think the world of Rinzel. I think he's their best defenseman long term. Lev Shinov is right there. I mean, right there. He makes a lot of boneheaded mistakes, even in Rockford, but he also is just so noticeable every time he's on the ice too. So it's like a combination of both, and that's fitting for a 19-year-old. When I was 19, I was smoking hookah in Dylan's basement, red velvet flavored. But there's so many different options. It's not like most drafts where it's like Bedard, Fantilli, Leo Carlson. That's the top 3. Carlson might go second. Fantilli might go second. They're both going to be good. They both are good. That draft is basically going exactly. Will Smith is awesome. Michkov, he might go second, but he might drop because he's from Russia and it's going to take a while. Well, he dropped. He's from Russia. It took a little while. He's here now. He's awesome. That draft was like, it felt easy to predict. And so far, everything people were saying about it has come true. This draft, it could go a multitude of ways. And there's a lot of prep for next year's draft in association with this draft.
Yeah, this next year's draft, obviously, a little more talented, top-heavy wise, but you look at these teams in the top 10, and I agree with you. I really like Misa. There is a chance he falls to 3. I strongly believe that. I don't think it's as clear-cut. I think, like we said, it's very balanced. I think anybody realistically could go 1, 2, 3. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked either way. Even if Hagens went 1, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's realistically possible. I think it could happen. That's why it doesn't make a ton of sense to move up. I think the Mammoth could get lucky and get anybody in this year's draft. I think it's like got vibes of a Shane Wright type of year where this guy could just fall. I do.
If he's not getting past the Blackhawks, I don't think, especially since they're thin at forward prospect wise. compared to D and compared to goalie, frankly. If Hagens goes 1, that's the way I see Misa going to falling to 3, because the Sharks have Will Smith and Celebrini. That's their 1-2 punch for the next
They
decade.
need an
They
elite
proved it.
defenseman.
Well, they have one. They have Dickinson. They drafted Dickinson 11th overall. He probably should have went like 5th. The way Dickinson and Bouillon fell last year, that's how I like bad teams stay bad teams, right? Like I say that all the time. But I do like Dickinson. I think Schaefer and Dickinson would mesh well together. Schaefer, more of that offensive, tons of skill, skates well. Dickinson skates well, but he also is bigger, stronger. I just think if that was a core 4 with Celebrini and Smith, I mean, that could really be something that they're building special in San Jose. What Schaefer what Smith and Celebrini did in their rookie years was awesome. And, I like what they got going on over there in San Jose. Are you frozen? Seems to me like Frankie's frozen, and I don't know why. He has Kmart connection lately. This used to be a staple of Frankie Mueller back in the old Xbox days. But so if I had to guess, I would assume that Schaefer goes first overall. I think if that's the case, Misa's going to go second. But then third, if it's the Blackhawks at third, and Misa and if Misa and Schaefer are gone and the Blackhawks are up at 3, I actually think they take Martone.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
I don't know why that happens like every week, once a week.
It's fine. It happens. Frank, answer me this. I think if Schaefer and Misa are the first 2 picks, the Hawks skip Hagens and take Martone.
Yeah, I like Martone a lot, actually.
So do I. I like the top 4 equally.
Going off his bio and reading up on him and seeing what this kid's all about, I wouldn't have been mad if they got the 2nd overall pick and took Martone. I think he's a great player. I think there's a lot there. I think there's a lot of potential. So, yeah, I mean, a lot like Hagens is just his name is being dragged through the mud. He's just dropping in terms of teams wanting him. He's going to be a great player too. I strongly believe that. But I wouldn't be opposed with them going Martone because I think I like Martone more, to be honest with you.
I think Hagens has a higher ceiling offensively. But what's Connor Bedard's biggest flaw?
I don't know. You
His
tell me.
Size.
Oh yeah, he's small. He's tiny.
Hagens is small too. And I have no problem with small. Patrick Kane, Sidney Crosby's one of the best of all time. I have no issue with small players. Johnny Hockey, God rest his soul. He was a small player. Jack Hughes isn't that big. Martone. I mean, and that's the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's huge, and he skates well for being a big guy. I think so Kyle Davidson, if you look at all the drafts, best player available has been his thing. Who does he and his scouts believe is the best player available? They mostly ignore team need. If they didn't ignore team need over best player available, they would have taken Demidov 2nd overall last year. They were in much more need of a skilled, flashy forward than they were a big-time two-way defenseman. But they believe Levshinov was better at D than Demidov was at forward, so they took him. I feel it would probably be the same way. So if they think Hagens is better, they're going to take him over Martone. I personally, with the size comparison to Bedard, I think you could probably get the bigger forward. Like a guy who has 100 points. 100 points is a lot. That's not fair. 80 points, but he's a little smaller and, probably less efficient in the playoffs, maybe. Maybe, because there are a lot of small players who are great in the playoffs. Looking at you, Mitch Marner. Or you can have a 60-point guy who just bangs around and he mashes goals and, like a Brady Tkachuk. And listen, Brady and Matthew Tkachuk's name gets thrown around way too much around drafts. It's kind of annoying. Lucic was like that back in the day. Every big power forward, Milan Lucic. He's going to be Milan Lucic. Well, Milan Lucic is one of a kind for a reason. So just chill with that. Same thing on the Kachucks. But a big, mean power forward, I see that in Martone. It wouldn't shock me. I like the top four. If I had to rank them based on best player, I would go Schaefer, Misa, Hagens, Martone, Frondell. But I like the idea of bringing in a big meanie if you're Kyle Davidson specifically.
Yeah, I only think there's really one wrong answer if you're the Hawks. If they took Schaefer, I'd be kind of bummed because of how much I love their defensive core they're building right now. It's kind of wrong to say it'd be the wrong move because of how talented he is, but they don't need him. I think they have other issues they need to handle first.
Counterpoint. You trade Korchinski, Del Mastro, Allen, one of the mid-tier defense. Like if they draft Schaefer, there's a subsequent move to be made. That I can almost guarantee you.
Yeah, and I'd be okay with that depending on it is. You're not going to trade away Vlasic or Levshinov. You're not going to trade any of those guys, Del Mastro.
So Del Mastro maybe.
I like Del Mastro.
I like him too.
I wouldn't want them to trade him.
Renzel is the other lock for me. Those three: Renzel, Vlasic, and
I'd be upset if they traded Del Mastro.
Really?
Yeah, I like him a lot.
I do too. I saw him play last night. He was awesome. But
the other guys, any of the other guys, that'd be fine with me if we traded them.
Yeah, I'm listen. I'm not looking to trade Del Mastro, but like if it were bringing back a really good forward, like a really good forward, and he was part of a package, like yeah, you got to like.
But I don't see that even being an option for them because if Schaefer fell to the Sharks, they're taking Schaefer for sure.
Yes, I agree.
So
I do agree. Although every year there's something dumb. Every year there's something. You're not going to tell me that that's not true. You're not going to tell me that I'm crazy for thinking that anything is like
it is.
Like
that's why I said anybody in the top four could realistically get anybody.
Okay, and so Romeliotis was talking about freaking the Blackhawks getting Denoyer third overall. He's a good player too. Big center, 6'2", a little smaller than Frondell, but I think the offensive ceiling for Denoyer is a little stronger. I have a hard time. I'm not a scout. I have a hard time with the Swedish guys because everybody's like, "Oh, this Swedish guy, he's so good. He's so good." And then you look at his stats, and he has 25 points in 29 games. I want to know, and I think we've had this conversation. What is it about the Swedish league that is just so hard to score, but they're able to identify? And they're always right. Lucas Raymond, William Eklund, all these guys from Sweden, they all get drafted, and it's like, well, I wonder what this was about. But I mean, I don't know. So Eklund, he could be a real good player. Travis likes my mustache. Just wait till I shave the rest of my face; it'll look even more grown in. Yeah, I definitely am going for the Mario look with the red Blackhawks hat and the mustache. His mustache not going away anytime soon either. As long as a certain team in the NHL is still alive in the playoffs, the mustache will stick around.
The mustache.
So, Frank, that's the NHL Draft Lottery. Really quick, Joel Quenneville, Anaheim Ducks. It became official now. The Anaheim Ducks have officially announced it. But it's been in the works for weeks. I actually got a tip of it a couple Saturdays ago that this was going to be the case. I didn't tweet it or anything. I just kind of kept it to myself. But I do have the article ready to go. I'm going to click publish as soon as this episode is over on Coach Quenneville being elected freaking the Pope. Hired by the Anaheim Ducks. He will be the 12th coach in Anaheim Ducks history, right?
Yeah, they got a good squad. They got a good young core going on in Anaheim, and I think Quenneville, with his experience and the system he brings, this Ducks team has the potential to be very good. It's interesting to see Quenneville back, see what he's going to bring to the table. Who knows, all this time off that he's had, how that'll make an impact with his coaching ways. But if he could get back to the way he was when he was coaching the Blackhawks in their prime, this Ducks team is going to be a force to be reckoned with for quite some time.
Yeah, there are a lot of people not happy about it. I'm not going to lie. A lawyer of one of the victims put out a statement. You can go to Scott Power's Twitter to read the whole thing. I'm not going to read the whole thing on air, but there are a lot of people still upset about it. It's going to be a treacherous ride for Coach Q along the way here with the Anaheim Ducks. From a hockey point of view, we'll see how it goes. I've been riding Anaheim's tails. I told you a couple episodes ago I think Anaheim could be real good next year, and that they didn't need to hire Coach Q to validate that for me. Like, I really believe in the talent and the prospect pool that they have, led by Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish. We'll see if Zegras sticks around. If I were Zegras, I'd try to stick around now. Like, why not ride it out? You see guys who are troubled early in their careers. They want trades. There's all these rumors. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're stars, like real stars. I would try my very best to stick it out if I were Zegras. But we'll see how that goes. I'm not going to get too much into Quenneville because, I want to let it digest a little bit, see some of the reaction and all this stuff. But it's just a tough situation. And the Anaheim Ducks believe they did what they needed to do in order to hire him. Both he and Stan Bowman were reinstated by the National Hockey League in July of last season. Bowman is now the GM of the Edmonton Oilers. Quenneville is now the head coach of the Anaheim Ducks. I will have a breaking newsy type piece coming out on the hockey news not long after the show's over, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Frank, let's head on over to period number 2. Welcome to period 2. Frank, we had some Game 7 mania. I almost said media. Game 7 mania over the weekend. It was one of the best duos of Game 7s I have ever witnessed in my entire life. I can't think of a year where there were two. There have been other elite Game 7s. I think back to Rangers Capitals all those years ago. There have been some really good ones. Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final last year. A 2-1 victory for the Florida Panthers, trying to avoid choking a 3-0 series lead to the Edmonton Oilers. There's been a lot of good ones. It's hard to remember 2 back-to-back nights like the ones we experienced over the weekend. We'll start with the Dallas Stars versus the Colorado Avalanche. When Nathan MacKinnon scored early in the third period of the Game 7 between the two, it took a 2-0 series lead. Or a 2-0 game lead for the Colorado Avalanche. I heard some whispers of the folks next to me talking about how it's Jover. Not so fast. When you have a Hall of Famer on your team, anything's possible. The Dallas Stars get a Mikko Rantanen hat trick and 4-point performance in the third period and win the game 4-2. Frank? Boom, boom, Dallas. Stars. Boom, boom, Dallas. Hit me with your thoughts.
Perhaps the craziest consecutive Game 7s we've seen in the first round in NHL history. A multi-goal third period comeback from the Dallas Stars is something they have not been able to do all year. And they did it. Mikko Rantanen. I told you when it was 1-0, I'm like, I could feel like Rantanen is either going to tie it and win it in overtime. And, I mean, he did
close enough.
Just about more than that, I would say. He scored the 2 tying goals.
Yeah, Colorado didn't even get a point by going over.
Rantanen did tie it. He didn't win it in overtime, so I was half right about that. But he scored 2 goals, and then I forgot who it was who gave him the lead, and then he's got the empty net.
Wyatt Johnston.
Great player. I love Wyatt Johnston. I'd get a jersey of him. He's fantastic. And then Rantanen was on that little breakaway with the goalie pulled, and that fan in the crowd, he had his hat cocked and ready. Threw it before the puck even went in the net.
I love how it was a fedora too.
And if he trips and the puck goes behind the net, that fan's an idiot. But it was funny. I mean, you knew he wasn't gonna miss that. Fan threw it on the ice. Everybody's pumped. I was pumped. That was unbelievable what we were witnessing, and it was just a great way to conclude that series. You hear Dallas, Colorado, immediately you think 7 games. These two teams are evenly matched. They're both stacked on both ends, despite the injuries that Dallas had. You hear those teams, you think Game 7, we got everything we could ask for. As a fan of hockey in this series, as a fan of the Dallas Stars, it was truly a great series, and it couldn't have ended a better way.
Couldn't agree more, Frank. It was awesome. One of the best games I've ever watched. It's a bad look for Colorado. I mean, Nature's
Two in the
great player.
series too.
Yeah, Nature's great player. Awesome player, right? He's really, really good. Sometimes there's a tick above, and you think you're not gonna see a difference if you just replace Natchez with Rantanen. Yeah, you might get some regular season similarities in terms of numbers, power play points, secondary assists, whatever. You have Kale Daddy and the Nate Dog, and Landeskog's back. He was impactful. Props to him. I'm excited to see what next season looks like for the captain of the Avalanche. But Mikko Rantanen, he's just a different breed, and he's a playoff performer. He's been a playoff performer his whole career. He has 113 points in 88 playoff games. I mean, it is just massive. Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin level production in the playoffs. If he ends his career with 500 goals and 750 assists, he's going to go to the Hall of Fame with ease. I think he's well on that track. I refer to him as a Hall of Famer often. He's not one of those guys where he could retire today and make it to the Hall of Fame, but he has a Hall of Fame base. If he's okay in his 30s, he will go to the Hall of Fame with ease. If he's great in his 30s, he'll go down as one of the greatest Finnish wingers of all time. I think the world of Rantanen. Listen, is it taking him a minute? Did it take him a minute in the regular season to get going without the Nate Dog? Of course, I think the Nate Dog is a breed above Rantanen. I do think he's in that next tier. He probably could retire today and at least have a shot at the Hall at least within the next year or two. He's already got 1,000 points. He's not even 30. I mean, McKinnon's a different animal himself, but Rantanen, man, it's not like playing with Wyatt Johnston or Jason Robertson over the next 8 years is going to be a detriment to him. The Carolina Hurricanes, they took their shot. They didn't get to it. Stankoven tied the game. He, has done wonders, but it's been a really, really good stretch for him too. But I do think the Dallas Stars, I mean, they got a big win with Rantanen. Big, big, big win.
Absolutely. And part of the slow start to the season with his tenure with the Dallas Stars could be the fact that he's just getting used to the new system that Peter DeBoer has in Dallas. It's that happens with guys, and then with a guy of Mikko Rantanen's magnitude, with somebody who excels so well in the playoffs, I'm not surprised that the gates are opening up. It's just, sometimes it's hard going to a new team. I mean, ask the Nashville Predators and getting all that talent. Nothing clicked for them. It's just, it happens. It just takes a second to find it, and he's found it.
Absolutely. He has found it. It should be interesting to see how it goes the rest of the way. And then, Frank, one day later, the St. Louis Blues. It was even more crazy. The St. Louis Blues and the Winnipeg Jets, they put on one of the greatest shows I've ever seen in a Game 7. The Blues had a 3-1 lead with 2 minutes left in the third period. And then Vladislav Nemesnikov scores kind of a weird angle shot goal. And you're like, oh, the Jets are really going to have a chance to tie this thing. It's unlikely. You don't always score with the goalie pulled. I'd say you do a very small percentage of time. But they found a way. Oh, and then it gets to 12 seconds. The puck's ringing around the boards. This game's over. The Blues are going to win. It's thrown on net. And the redirection by Cole Perfetti to give the Jets a tie game and going to overtime after Connor Hellebuck had just a brutal start to the game. He looked out of place. He looked scared. He was jumpy. And then all of a sudden, he locked in the third period, and he helped the Jets get it tied, and he was dominant in overtime. And then they get to overtime, and they put together an all-time win with Lowry deflecting the puck past, captaining his way into the second round. Credit to the St. Louis Blues. I thought they put on more of a show than I thought they were going to in the first round, but the Winnipeg Jets and Connor Hellebuck exercise their demons, and they get it done. Frank, what were your thoughts?
It's not often you pull the goalie and tie it, but it's not often that you pull the goalie and tie it twice. Or you don't tie it twice, but you score twice with the goalie pulled, and then you score the latest goal in Game 7 history to tie a game. A lot of history was made there. In that moment, it's like, wow. Well, it felt like one of two things. Is there too much pressure and momentum on the Jets side and too many emotions to actually win this thing in overtime? or is it just going to be full steam ahead? They're going to pull this out. The Blues are going to choke. And that's what happened. If I'm a Blues fan, I'm sick to my stomach that we don't win that game. I would be devastated, silent, in tears potentially, most likely, that we don't pull out that win. You got to clamp down. That at the end of the game, they just threw the puck at the net, and Perfetti was there to tip it in. It was a beautiful, beautiful tip in. And the fact that now the Jets and Dallas are going head to head, teams that made multi-goal comebacks against each other, it's a great storyline for the second round. And the Jets, I don't know if the Jets have what it takes to progress any further past this round. Hellebuck's got to be a lot better, especially against the Dallas Stars, but they beat the Blues, and it's just devastating for the Blues. I mean, the locker room, I can't imagine being in the locker room afterwards.
I agree. I do think it would have been worse if the Jets lost for their future. The Blues are in an okay spot. You're going to have a full season of Snuggerud next year. Robert Thomas and Kyrou have bounced back. Montgomery's a solid coach. We'll see what they do in the draft and free agency. Listen, I think the Blues are real good. They gave the President's Trophy winner everything they could handle, and the Jets found a way. They found a way to win a hockey game. And sometimes that happens in the playoffs. I do think if the Blues would have won, there would have been some issues in Winnipeg right now. Like some major issues. Like I wouldn't imagine I would imagine like the trade Hellebuck rumors would have started up had they lost that series. And now the Demons are exercised. They could lose in the second round to Dallas, who is a better team in my opinion. Not Hellebuck's fault. I will get into that series in a couple minutes when we go over them quickly in the third. But I mean, man, I'm happy for Hellebuck. I really am, because that's a career-defining win. And now Hellebuck's playoff woes are always going to get a little bit of an eye roll from me, because he has a run to the conference finals. He did have a .950 save percentage when the Jets beat the Oilers in the playoffs in 21. When they beat the Oilers, they beat the Oilers that year. I think it was the COVID. It was the second COVID year where there was the Canadian division.
Mm-hmm.
Hellebuck was awesome in that playoff. So he has a couple bad playoffs. Of course, he also has a couple good playoffs where he's won a round, won 2 rounds, won 3 rounds one time. I don't know. I think he's a mixed bag in the playoffs at best at this point for me.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really agree more. I mean, it makes sense. I really have nothing else to say. You nailed it all. I mean, he's been good some playoffs. He's been bad other playoffs.
Yep. And he was locked in the third period in overtime of Game 7.
And
locked in. The saves he made in overtime against the Blues, marvelous.
And I think he feeds off that.
Yes.
I think he could have a terrible, terrible game. Horrible. But the Jets tie it up and he makes a big save. And you're like, okay. He had a horrible game, made a big save. That's great. And that coming around, 2-on-1, brilliant play of the year save. Save of the year. And like, okay, hold on a second. He's locked in now. We're not going to be able to beat Hellebuck. He just goes through this roller coaster of form. And we saw that against the Blues. I mean, he was unbelievable.
I'm not saying they're going to beat the Stars, because I actually do. I think I would pick the Stars. We'll get to that. I'm leaning Stars, but like if the Jets won, I wouldn't be too surprised. Luongo had the same things on him early in his career, or midway through his career, I should say. And then he dominated the Blackhawks in that Game 7. I know Taves tied it late, but the Canucks won in overtime and the Demons were exercised for Luongo. He carried that momentum all the way to the cup.
Tied it on a shorthanded goal too.
Yeah. But the fact that he carried that momentum from playing well against the Blackhawks in that Game 7, after all the similar to Hellebuck, is Hellebuck going to carry them to the final this year? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But now going into playoffs going forward, I'm not going to really be thinking much about playoff Hellebuck in a negative way. I'm going to say it depends which playoff Hellebuck shows up. We have examples of good and bad now, multiple of each.
Yeah.
So. What a couple Game 7s it was. We can only hope to have Game 7s like that again down the stretch here in the rest of the postseason. A lot of the times there has been letdown in round 2 after elite level round 1s. I specifically remember that 2 years ago. Round 1 was so amazing. Last year, round 2 and 3 were amazing. I think we're going to have more like last year this year, where rounds 2 and 3 don't have much of a fall down following round 1, because round 1 has better matchups a lot because of the way the playoffs are set up. These division, Colorado's versus Dallas's and Winnipeg's versus St. Louis's, the Battle of Florida, the Battle of Ontario. The second round gets a little more watered down, I think, sometimes. Not so much this year, and we will touch on that. We're going to just quickly touch on each series a little bit in period number 3. Welcome to period 3, Frank. Let's quickly roll through these. We'll give our prediction. I know a couple of the series are already on their way. We will start with Dallas versus Winnipeg. What do you think?
Like I said, battle between two teams who had Game 7 comebacks in round 1. Mikko Rantanen's been the best player in the playoffs this year so far, and it's not even close. This man single-handedly propelled his team with the victory with a hat trick in Game 7 against Colorado. Had a hat trick, a natural hat trick against the Winnipeg Jets last night. If Mikko Rantanen stays this hot, this Dallas Stars team is going to be hard to beat. And I already think they're the best team left in the Western Conference. This team is no stranger to the postseason, which is why having a guy like Rantanen performing at this level and with his experience of winning a cup with Colorado is going to be a tough task for any team to beat this team. And one thing I said going into the playoffs is while they were hurt, if they get past the first round, they will start to get a bit healthier. And when they get healthier, they're going to get a lot scarier. They got Jason Robertson back for Game 1 yesterday, and they expect to have Heiskanen back in this round as well. And if that's the case, they're getting healthy. They're very dangerous and going to be tough to beat.
Absolutely. I also think the Stars are going to win. I'm going to pick them in 6.
I didn't give a game. I say 5. Dallas in 5.
All right, Dallas in 5. I'm going to go Dallas in 6. I think they'll win it at home in Game 6. Winnipeg's going to put up a fight. I just think Dallas has a little too much right now. Winnipeg, they can get there. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could win the cup with this core. I just think this year Dallas is going to be a little too strong for them. I think they ride that wave with Rantanen for a little too long. So we'll see how it goes. Frank, the other Western Conference series, my Oilers playing the Vegas Golden Knights, round number 1. Vegas took a 2-0 series lead, or a 2-0 game lead. I keep saying series lead, a 2-0 game lead in Game 1. And I know all the Vegas fans like you were probably so cocky. This is going to be a bloodbath. We're going to dominate this series. We're the Vegas Golden Knights. We're basically the Chiefs of the NHL. And then Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl say, no, not today. You may still win this series, Vegas, but you're not that much better than the Oilers. If you lose, you're not that much worse than the Oilers. I recognize that. But, man, are the Oilers. They look like last year's Oilers. After going down 2-0 to the Kings, they've won 5 straight games, and I think it's fair to say that something is clicking with them, and they now look like the team that they were last year.
Mark Stone tried to propel the Vegas Golden Knights to a Game 1 win against the Oilers. They had other things to say. This victory for the Oilers actually marked the 5th consecutive playoff comeback win. It broke the previous NHL record. These Oilers have been the comeback kids, and you could really say that dating back to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, where they almost made a 3-0 series deficit comeback against the Panthers. The Oilers were down 2-0 to the Kings, and they came back. They came back in the game. It's whether you're talking about series or games individually, they find ways to come back. Edmonton, they play great. The Knights are dealing with a few key injuries, which didn't help them in that game. Alex Pietrangelo was out with an illness. He's the Vegas's leading player in average ice time. Dorofeyev, he's been injured. He was the Golden Knights' leading goal scorer this season. He's missed 2 consecutive games now. I mean, the Knights not being 100% could pose some major issues for this Edmonton Oilers team, because the Oilers, they have a good team. So could the Knights win the series? Absolutely. I still think they're going to win the series. I'm going to say they win it in 6.
Yeah, I'm going Oilers in 6. I think they get it done. McDavid and Draisaitl are too much for them to handle right now. Their defense looks slow. I don't know what it is with Hanifin and Pietrangelo. After the early stages of Game 1, it just didn't. The Vegas Golden Knights, they looked outmatched. I don't know if Edmonton's going to be able to keep up coming back in every game. It'd be nice for them to get a lead early in a game here and there, but they're never out of a game, and that's scary. The fact that they can just score 2-3 in a short amount of time, that's scary for any team. It's hard to beat. Vegas needs to be. They weren't that good against the Wild. Now, I will say I thought Vegas was good in games 5 and 6 against the Wild. But in games 1 through 4, no bueno. And Edmonton is not the Wild right now. The Wild may get there one day, but the Wild are mostly 1.5 scoring lines, depending on what Hartman's doing. Hartman, he made it a 1.5 scoring line team. The Edmonton Oilers, they got more than that. When Draisaitl and McDavid are going, the rest of the team, playoff Connor Brown, unbelievable. I mean, this guy, playoff Zach Hyman, unbelievable. Nugent Hopkins has looked better. Draisaitl and McDavid are both in the Conn Smythe Trophy conversation with Mikko Rantanen. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes, but yeah, I think the Oilers are going to get it done. I did not going into game 1, but now that the Golden Knights look lethargic again against the Oilers, I thought they might wipe it off their face going against Edmonton, because obviously sometimes against the 8th seed, like you're playing against the Wild, the 8th seed, 7th seed, whatever, one of the wild card teams, you might not take it as you need to get going for this Oilers series, though I thought they would. They haven't. Some of the ugly issues from the Wild series are rearing their ugly head against the Oilers, and it can't be done. So we'll see what happens there, but it's not one of my locks by any means. And then you get to the one series that, a lot of people are, it's a fine series. They're two really good teams, the Washington Capitals and the Carolina Hurricanes. Not quite the juice as the other 3 series going on in the second round, but Carolina with a comeback win. Stankoven ties it up, and now Jacob Slavin wins it in overtime. One of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL puts it together in overtime and gets it done. Frank, what's your quick thoughts on this series?
Yeah, it was 1-0 Washington, and despite it only being 2-1 in overtime for the Carolina Hurricanes, the Capitals were dominated the entire game, and it had that feeling that it was only a matter of time before the Hurricanes tied it up. And then when it was 1 apiece, it was only a matter of time, it felt like, before the Hurricanes won that game. I got to be honest, the Capitals didn't look dominant in their series win over the Canadiens. The Carolina Hurricanes, they're a huge uptick in talent compared to the Canadiens. So if you're the Capitals, you got to figure out how to penetrate this Carolina Hurricanes defense, because Carolina's always a team that, has a lot of pride about their defense. They're always playing defensive games. And if the Capitals can't find ways to get 2-3 goals a game, they're going to be cooked in this series, and the Hurricanes will win. I'm still going to back the Capitals. I still think the Capitals are going to win this series. I'll go Caps in 7.
Caps in 7, okay. I'm going to stick with you on that. I think Caps in 7 as well. Carolina, they probably deserve to win more than in overtime in game 1. I think the Capitals will probably find a way to figure it out and get it done in the rest of the series against Carolina. I'll go Caps in 7 as well, but probably the least confident pick I have out of all of them. And then, Frank, this series between the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I don't have to come on this program and hear your anti-Leafs propaganda coming into the freaking series. You've never seen them go as far as you're going to in this playoffs in your whole life, because they could lose 4 straight game 6 if the second round's the farthest you've ever seen them. I said it's the best Leafs team of our life. That is proven to be true. It is. Even if they choke the rest of the series, they're the best Leafs team of our life. I feel validated. The Toronto Maple Leafs have a 2-0 series lead over the Florida Panthers. Let's go, Leafs. Leafs in 5.
I'm very impressed with this Leafs team. Why couldn't this be the Leafs team we've seen over the past decade? Why do they have to be so shitty and boring? Why, finally, we could see them be good. You're up 2-0 on the reigning Stanley Cup champions after so much playoff frustration over the years. This is the best case scenario you could be if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, or if you're in the organization. You are stoked. Mini problem. Stolarz was injured, but Joseph Wool's great goaltender. He actually has great career playoff numbers in the small sample size that we've seen from him. He's had a very good year this year. He started 41 games, half the games. The Leafs could win with Joseph Wool in net. On the other hand, Florida is the team of comebacks too. just like the Oilers. They're a team of comebacks. You can never count out the Florida Panthers. They never let the pressure get to them. When it looks like the Panthers team is against the wall and all pressure is shifted towards them, they prove they can handle anything, and they move forward with their original game plan. Down 3-1 in the series to the Bruins, we don't care. We'll win in 7. Up 3-0, choking to the Edmonton Oilers. All pressure's on us to win. We don't want to choke. Doesn't matter. We'll win in Game 7. This Panthers team cannot be doubted. Panthers get it done in 7 games. We've seen with 2-0 leads. Kings up 2-0 to the Oilers. We blew a 2-0 lead. 2-0 leads can never be safe. Panthers get this done in 7 games.
And they're going home. No, the series is far from over.
Blues up 2-0 against the Jets. We blew a 2-0 lead. We've seen multi 2-game series leads in this playoff series so far blown. I gotta trust the Panthers in this situation. Panthers in 7.
I think it's very possible for the Panthers to win in 7. Although Game 7 would be in Toronto. I think if the Leafs get 1 in Florida, it's Jover. The Panthers have to win both in Florida. They have to win both in Florida. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm going to go Leafs in 7, but I'm not that confident. I just feel validated that it's the best Leafs team of our life. That's what I said. That's all I said. If they beat Florida, though, I think they can win the Cup. You can't tell me they can't beat Vegas or Dallas or Edmonton if they beat Florida. I'm not saying they could lose to Dallas in the championship. It wouldn't shock me.
Dallas is
but
so
to say there's no shot if they beat Florida, yeah, that would be crazy talk to me. So that's it, Frank. It's time to send it over to America's favorite podcast segment of the week, Breaking Bets.
Where's my money, bitch?
Frank, the floor is yours.
First pickup we got between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Washington Capitals. We saw how defensive this series may pan out to be. A majority of Carolina Hurricanes games are very defensive style games. That's just how this team has always operated. That's how Rod Brindamore operates. I love the value we are getting here for the under 1.5 goals for the first period. I also wouldn't mind chucking 1 unit on the Washington Capitals money line at plus 115. I think they could get the job done at home. I still think this Capitals team is a cup contender, and they cannot afford to lose both games on home ice and find themselves in a 2-0 deficit. So we're going to go with 2 units on the under 1.5 goals for the first period at minus 120. And if you want to chuck a unit on the Washington Capitals money line plus 115, I don't think that is a bad option as well. I think there's a lot of value on both ends there. Second game, we got the Golden State Warriors against the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Warriors dominated the Timberwolves in game 1 of this series. The Minnesota Timberwolves came out with one of the worst performances I think I've ever seen by any team I've watched since I've been watching basketball. The Warriors set a franchise record, holding the Timberwolves to only 31 points in the first half. They did not make a single 3-pointer in the first half. Never seen that before. The last time that happened, a team went without a 3.5. You have to go back 7 years to 2018. This Timberwolves team, they're going to respond in a big way after such a horrendous game 1. Plus Steph Curry, he's out 1 week with an injury. He won't be available for this matchup. If the Warriors want a chance to win, they need Jimmy Butler, Buddy Hield, Jonathan Kuminga. These guys are all going to have to step up and put in the minutes and play almost perfect basketball. It's just not the same team without Steph Curry. Could they win the game? They could, but it's just a different team when you don't have Steph Curry there out on the court. I'm going to take the Minnesota Timberwolves minus 9.5 points at minus 130, bet to win 2 units. I think the Timberwolves are going to respond in a big way, and they have to take advantage when Curry is not in the game for these next few games.
There you go, Frank. Very good stuff. Very good. I hope everybody enjoyed our show today. I hope they enjoyed Breaking Bets and make some money. I hope everybody watches the Stanley Cup playoffs. Very, very good stuff. The Rockford IceHogs 2-1 series lead. They lost last night to the Milwaukee Admirals. Make sure you keep up with me and what's going on with the Rockford IceHogs as well. Game 4 tomorrow night, a chance to clinch the series and advance to the Central Division round of the playoffs, the Central Division Championship round of the playoffs. Trying to think what else. Lots of hockey this weekend. Should be very, very fun. Thank you to Travis. Thank you to Tom. Thank you to everybody who watched our show from the chat, whether you were active in the chat or not. As always, Frank, thank you for listening.